Welcome back to the Book Nook podcast. Today we're diving into the world of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. It's a book, that seems like everyone has an opinion on.
Oh, for sure.
We've got reviews, essays, even YouTube videos ready to unpack. So
wow, that's quite the collection.
So let's see what makes this book pick.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating about Catcher in the Rye is that it's a beloved classic and simultaneously a source of so much controversy.
Right.
People praise it as this coming-of-age masterpiece, but then at the same time, they dismiss it as just like angsty teenage rambling.
Yep.
It's a tough tightrope to walk for any book, really.
It really is. And at the heart of this storm is Holden Caulfield, our narrator. He's like the quintessential teenager who's like wrestling with all the phoniness, as he calls it, of the adult world.
Right. Well, and I think that Holden is, he's such a complex character. And that complexity is really a huge reason why this book still resonates with readers, decades later. I mean, he's on the surface, he's rebellious, he's kind of cruelous, but beneath that, I think he's really grappling with a lot of universal teenage struggles.
For sure.
That alienation, the identity, trying to find your place in a world that feels completely fake to him.
Right. So let's unpack this a bit. The book is considered a classic. You see it on these prominent best books lists. It's taught, frequently in high school. But we have this YouTuber, Bjorn, and he brings up a point that I think is really interesting. So he's from Sweden, and in Sweden, Catcher in the Rye isn't on any school reading lists.
Oh, interesting.
He actually read it much later in life and found it to be, well, kind of a different experience.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, reading a book at different stages of life, I think, can totally change your perspective on it. Because something that might have resonated with you as a teenager, when you're struggling with all those feelings of not fitting in, it might feel tedious or even depressing to someone who's, who's already kind of gone through those experiences. For
sure. I mean, Bjorn actually described the book as a bit slow and depressing.
Yeah.
But he did acknowledge that those themes, of teenage angst, searching for meaning, figuring out who you are, those probably resonate really deeply with younger readers.
Absolutely. I think it's almost like Holden acts as a mirror. He reflects back all of the anxieties that I think a lot of young people feel, especially, during that transition into adulthood. Yeah. And so even if older readers, don't necessarily connect with his voice or his perspective, I think understanding his struggles can still offer some, valuable insights into the complexities of adolescence.
Right. Now, I think that one thing that grabs you right away when you're reading Catcher in the Rye is Holden's voice. It's raw, it's real, and it's undeniably distinct.
For sure.
We have a review here from Eamon A, and he really highlights how Salinger's use of profanity and all that slang he uses really creates this gritty, authentic atmosphere. You feel like you're right there in Holden's head, experiencing, everything alongside him.
Yeah, it's a really powerful technique using language like that to fully immerse the reader in the character's world. But as Eamon A also points out, it's that rawness that makes the book potentially unsuitable for a younger audience.
Absolutely, this is definitely a book for mature readers. And speaking of mature themes, The Catcher in the Rye has a history of controversy.
Oh, yeah.
It's been challenged in courts. And it seems to have this certain allure, particularly, for teenage boys.
Right. The book, it really explores sexuality rebellion and that feeling of being an outsider. And then when you combine that with Holden's, rebellious attitude, it's no surprise that it's been a frequent target of censorship. But ironically, it's that controversy that has kind of added to the book's mystique and its appeal. Yeah. Especially for those young readers who really who identify with with those themes.
Absolutely. Now, before we go any further, I want to loop back to something that YouTuber Ariel Bissett highlighted, and that's Holden's unreliable narration.
Well, yeah.
She points out that he's constantly contradicting himself, which really makes you question whether you can actually trust his version of events.
Right.
It's almost like he's filtering everything through this lens of cynicism.
Well, and what's so fascinating about that is Holden's hypocrisy, which is, a common trait in in teenagers.
Yeah.
I mean, he criticizes everyone for being phony, as he calls it, but then he engages in those same superficial interactions that he condemns.
Right.
He complains about movies being fake, but then he spends, all this time watching them.
Right.
And I think it's that paradox that makes him such a compelling character, because it forces you to grapple with, all his inconsistencies.
Yeah. It's like, he's trying so hard to reject anything that that he sees as fake. But, but deep down, I think he craves connection and meaning, just like everyone else.
Absolutely.
And that internal conflict, I think, is what makes him so relatable.
It does. It really, it highlights that. Despite his judgmental nature, Holden's still, he's still just a teenager who's trying to figure things out, grappling with hypocrisy, contradictions, just like so many of us do at that age. And this is where I think understanding the whole concept of an unreliable narrator becomes so crucial.
For sure.
Because it means we can't just take everything Holden says, at face value.
Right.
We have to really we have to read between the lines, consider his biases, and then ultimately form our own, interpretations of the events that he's describing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now I have to bring up this this pivotal scene where Phoebe, his younger sister, challenges Holden to name one thing that he actually likes.
Oh, yeah.
And guess what?
Well,
he can't.
He can't think of anything.
He can't. He's so focused on what he dislikes.
Yeah.
On everything that he finds phony, that he can't even articulate anything that he genuinely cares about.
Wow. That's a really powerful scene, because I think if you connect it back to the bigger picture, Holden's, all of his negativity, it almost becomes this defense mechanism,
right? A
way to shield himself from vulnerability, by focusing on what he dislikes.
Yes.
He avoids the risk of investing in anything wholeheartely, and then potentially facing that. Disappointment.
Right. Wow. That's a great insight. It's like he's built up all these walls of cynicism around himself.
Yeah.
Now, before we go any deeper, we want to remind all of our amazing listeners to subscribe to the Book Nook podcast and leave us a review. Your support really helps us reach more book lovers out there.
Absolutely. And we also encourage you to share your thoughts on The Catcher in the Rye in the comments below. Do you agree with Bjorn's assessment? What resonated with you from A's review? We're always excited to hear your perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get back to our deep dive here. Let's unpack the symbolism of the title, The Catcher in the Rye. Remember the image that Holden describes, where he's saving children from falling off a cliff in a field of rye.
Oh yeah, that's such a key image. I think it really represents Holden's longing to preserve innocence, to protect children from all those harsh realities of adulthood.
Right.
He sees himself as this catcher, this guardian figure, shielding them from the fall.
Yeah, and it's such a poignant metaphor for Holden's own. For his own struggles.
Absolutely.
He's clinging to childhood.
Yeah.
While at the same time being pushed toward adulthood, which I think is something that a lot of our listeners can probably relate to.
I think so too. It really speaks to that universal experience of growing up, of losing that innocence, and trying to find your place in a world that can feel really overwhelming.
Right,
and it's those themes that I think make The Catcher in the Rye so enduring and thought-provoking, even if you don't always agree with Holden's perspective.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place to pause for part one of our deep dive into The Catcher in the Rye.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We just left off talking about the symbolic meaning behind the title The Catcher in the Rye, and how it connects to those universal feelings of growing up and facing a world that can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah, it makes me think about Holden and how he wants to protect innocence.
Yeah.
And how that plays out in his relationships with the other characters. I think they really they really shed light on, who he is
Yeah.
and what he's struggling with.
Absolutely. I mean, Holden might be the central figure.
Well,
His interactions with, with others, especially his younger sister Phoebe and his old classmate Jane Gallagher. I think they really they reveal so much about his emotional landscape.
Right.
They represent that innocence and that genuine connection that he desires, but has so much trouble holding on to.
Yeah, you're right. Phoebe is this bright, perceptive young girl.
Yeah.
Who really sees through Holden's cynicism.
She's a fear, someone that he really connects with, someone that he wants to shield from all the from all that phoniness, as he calls it.
Yeah.
In the adult world. Remember that scene where she asks him what he wants to be when he grows up, and he talks about being the catcher in the rye, saving kids from falling off a cliff.
Oh yeah, that's such a it's such an iconic scene. I think Phoebe becomes this symbol of purity and goodness, everything that Holden wants to.
Good
but she's not just this passive figure.
Yeah.
She challenges him, his negativity, his hypocrisy, and forces him to really confront his own contradictions. In a lot of ways, she acts as his moral compass.
And then there's Jane Gallagher. Even though she's not physically present in the story, her absence speaks volumes. Holden remembers her with such fondness, especially the way she used to play checkers.
Yeah.
Always keeping our kings in the back row. Right. Yeah. Jane represents, I think, a simpler time for Holden, a time when connections felt more genuine and less tainted by the by the phoniness that he so despises. His memories of her really highlight that that deep yearning for real intimacy, something that he just really struggles to find. In his pleasant interactions.
Like he's idealized Jane in his mind, holding on to this image of her as a symbol of a genuine connection, and he's almost afraid to reach out to ruin that image by bringing her into his messy present reality.
That fear of ruining things, of of connections becoming phony. It's a recurring theme in Holden's life. I think it prevents him from from forming those lasting bonds, and really contributes to his isolation, which brings up a question: could what Holden struggles be rooted in?
Something deeper than just typical teenage angst, right? Yeah, Bjorn, that YouTuber we mentioned earlier, he felt that Holden's outlook on life was quite depressing, and Ariel Bissett in her video, she said she felt like Holden was like he was struggling with depression, his constant negativity, his inability to find joy, his social withdrawal. I mean, all of those things could point to, something more serious going on beneath the surface.
Right. And while Salinger never explicitly states that Holden has a mental illness, it's certainly something to consider, I think. His emotional state could be influenced by factors that are beyond his control, and understanding that just adds another layer of complexity to how we interpret his actions and
his words. It's a reminder to to approach Holden with empathy and recognize that even those who seem
frustrating or cynical, battling internal struggles that we just can't fully grasp.
Sometimes what appears as teenage angst can be manifestation of something deeper, something that requires an understanding and compassion.
Yeah, that's a really insightful point, and I think it's something that the Salinger does masterfully. He invites the reader to empathize with this flawed, complex character like Holden. You might find yourself getting frustrated with him, but you also feel for him.
Well, absolutely. Now, before we move on, we want to remind all of our amazing listeners to subscribe to the Book Nook podcast and leave us a review. Your support means the world to us, and it really helps us reach more book lovers like you.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out the episode description for a link to purchase your own copy of The Catcher in the Rye, so you can follow along with our discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's delve into some of the recurring symbols and motifs that run through the narrative, adding layers of meaning and depth to The Catcher in the Rye. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think these symbols, they act like hidden clues, guiding us toward
You know,
a deeper understanding of the story's themes and Holden's motivations. I think one of the most prominent is as we've touched upon, is that red hunting hat that he wears. Remember how he mentions buying it impulsively in New York, and how he feels self-conscious wearing it around people he knows.
Oh yeah, it seems like that hat becomes a symbol of Holden's desire to
you be different,
to stand out from all those phonies he can't stand. He even says it makes him feel like he's sort of disappearing. Yeah. Which is interesting given, his struggles with feeling unseen and misunderstood.
Yeah. That's a really astute observation. I think the hat represents his individuality in a world that feels increasingly conformist. To him, it's like nurse moody, and it's like he's trying to hold on to his unique identity.
like
In a world that wants to force him into a to a mold.
Yeah, and the fact that he keeps putting it on
And taking it off.
throughout the book suggests that he's not quite sure how to how to present himself to the world.
Right.
It's like he's experimenting with different identities.
Yeah.
Trying to find one that that feels
authentic.
Yeah.
I think that search for authenticity is another is another core theme, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
Holden constantly
Jody people
in experiences labeling them as phony or
Sure.
genuine.
His criteria are often so subjective and inconsistent.
Yeah. He's created this rigid system for evaluating the world, and anything that doesn't fit his narrow definition of real is automatically dismissed, which
ironically is
a form of phoniness.
Is a form of phoniness in itself.
Yeah. It is, and I think this rigid thinking isolates him further, preventing him from forming those genuine connections and appreciating the complexities of human experiences.
Right.
Like he's trapped in this cycle of cynicism and judgment, unable to see beyond his own limited perspective.
Right.
Another
symbol that always struck me was the ducks in Central Park.
Yeah.
Remember how Holden keeps obsessing over where they go when the lagoon freezes over.
Yeah, I think those ducks become this metaphor for Holden's own anxieties about the future.
He's terrified of the unknown. Of what will happen to him as he transitions into adulthood, just like those ducks
facing the harsh winter.
Yeah,
he feels vulnerable
and
uncertain.
And it's interesting that he never actually gets a clear answer about the ducks. It's as if the question itself is more important than the answer. Yeah. And I think that that uncertainty really mirrors Holden's own quest for meaning, his need to understand the world. Yeah. Even if the answers aren't always comforting.
Absolutely. It's it's a powerful reminder that sometimes the act of searching, of grappling with those big questions is more valuable than finding those easy answers. It's through that process of exploration and questioning that we truly grow and
evolve.
Yeah.
Well said. I think that's a great spot to pause for part 2 of our deep dive into The Catcher in the Rye. Welcome back to the deep dive.
As we wrap up our exploration of The Catcher in the Rye, I keep thinking about those ducks in Central Park and that sense of that sense of uncertainty. It's a feeling that really echoes, I think, in the book's ending. Wouldn't you say? Oh, absolutely. The ending of The Catcher in the Rye, it's famously ambiguous. It leaves you with, more questions than answers, which I think can be frustrating for some readers.
Right.
But it's also, I think, what makes it so compelling.
It is. And we get this, the shift in perspective. In those final pages, Holden's no longer narrating in that, in that immediate stream of consciousness style. He's kind of looking back on his experiences from a distance,
right,
implying that that he's in some kind of institution.
Right, and I think that that shift is really crucial because it suggests that Holden's, that his journey wasn't just a phase or a teenage rebellion.
Right.
his breakdown and the need for treatment. It indicates that his struggles, they run deeper. They require more than just time to sort themselves out.
Right. We're left wondering, what exactly happened after that carousel ride with Phoebe.
Yeah.
Did being in treatment provide Holden with any solace or clarity? Did he ever find a way to deal with all the phoniness that he's so fixated on?
Right. Well, and I think Salinger, the author, he intentionally leaves those questions open, forcing us to confront the uncertainty of Holden's future.
Right.
It's this it's a reminder that life rarely offers these these neat and tidy resolutions.
Right.
Growth can be messy, full of setbacks and and unexpected turns.
But there is that there's that glimmer of hope, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, Holden mentions that he's going to a new school in the fall, and he even misses some of the people that he's that he's been talking about.
It does, and I think those those subtle hints, they suggest this possibility of of change of Holden, maybe starting to see the value in those connections that he's been that he's been pushing away. It's not this grand declaration, but it's a crack in his cynical armor.
It is, and that's what I find so powerful about The Catcher in the Rye. It embraces the messiness of life, the complexities of human emotion, and the fact that growth isn't always
it isn't always linear.
It's not. It's really a testament to Salinger's talent that a book published back in 1951 can still feel so relevant today. I mean, those themes of alienation, searching for identity, feeling the pressure to conform.
Right.
Those are struggles that I think resonate with with so many people, regardless of their age or background.
Absolutely, and it's those those universal truths that make The Catcher in the Rye such an enduring and impactful work of literature. It's a book that sparks debates, invites us to analyze its layers, and continues to resonate with with readers decades later. I mean, it's even sparked a whole subculture, with that red hunting hat becoming this iconic symbol in itself. Right. And I think beyond that, beyond that individual reading experience, The Catcher in the Rye has really significantly impacted, I think, our culture.
Yeah.
Holden Caulfield has become this archetype, this literary representation of it, of that disillusioned, sensitive young person who feels like an outsider. His cynical observations, that yearning for authenticity, the desire to protect innocence. I mean, all these elements have really permeated our collective consciousness. It's fascinating how literature can do that.
It is. It's a reminder of the the power of stories.
Yeah.
And how they can transcend time and cultural boundaries. Right. Even though Holden might seem like a product of his time, that that teenage angst and that yearning for for something real. Those are emotions that continue to resonate today.
Absolutely. That timelessness is what makes The Catcher in the Rye such a powerful and essential read, even with all its controversy and ambiguity. It pushes us to to confront those uncomfortable truths, challenge our own assumptions, and ultimately empathize with a character who, despite his many flaws, really embodies that rawness and vulnerability that that I think we often experience as we try to figure out who we are and where we belong.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end of our deep dive into The Catcher in the Rye.
Well said.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring this complex and fascinating book with us today.
Yeah,
it's a book that that stays with you, prompts you to reflect on your own experiences, and maybe even see the world through a slightly different lens.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the in the comments below. We'd love to hear your your perspectives on Holden the Book's ending, or anything that really resonated with you.
Yeah, and of course, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please consider subscribing to the the Book Nook podcast for more insightful discussions on all things literary. And don't forget to leave us a review too. We truly appreciate your support.
Absolutely. And before you go, remember to check out the episode description for a link where you can buy your own copy of The Catcher in the Rye, so you can explore further.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today on the Book Note Podcast. Happy reading.